So this is my Game of Thrones Season 8 spoiler video, and it's a consolidation of what we know so far. It's obviously going to contain some spoilers for the entire Game of Thrones series, up to and including Season 8. The great thing about the current long night is that there are so many theories and predictions out there. I'd say that if you can think it, someone has leaked it as the real deal at this point. There's so many fake leaks. I'm sure in all of this mess we have seen the real story, but we're probably, much like some of the cast and crew, confused, and we're going to get to that. The following is a summary of confirmed facts for Season 8, and more than a few theories and speculations thrown in as well. Most of this information was obtained through Digital Spy, Express, and Reddit. So where did we leave off in Season 7? The Night King tore down the wall with the help of White Viserion, and there's a question mark if he's actually a White. The Stark sisters killed Littlefinger following Bran's revelation that Littlefinger had betrayed Eddard. Jon and Dany hooked up on the boat to White Harbor while Brandon and Sam discovered his true identity. Jaime Lannister is heading north following a spat with his sister Queen Cersei. The Great War. The entire series has been building to this. Season 7 concluded with an armistice and the other war going on in Westeros between Cersei and Daenerys for control over the Iron Throne. Much of Westeros has united to battle the Night King, but we the audience know that treachery is afoot. Who dies, who lives, and will spring ever come to Westeros are questions fans breathlessly await answers for. Liam Cunningham hinting that a lot of characters will come together to battle a common threat. The progress of the show with the White Walkers and all of that stuff, it's pretty obvious nobody's going to be able to take this force on their own. So when we've all had all of these, for all these seasons, disparate stories coming from disparate ends of Westeros, it has been, and it's been signaled from the end of the 6th season that there's a lot of people and situations going to be coming together. Producer Brian Cogman went on to tease, there are White Walkers and dragons, and once they start to come together, the story has to go where it goes. For a long time we've been talking about the wars to come. Well, that war is pretty much here, Benioff said. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau hinting that main characters could perish and be resurrected at White Walkers. Indeed, in early 2018, Game of Thrones filmed what's been reported as its biggest ever battle, one that took 55 straight nights to shoot. We're expecting more than a few casualties. Jon and Daenerys. Assuming the showrunners were telling us the full truth, that Jon Snow is in fact Aegon Targaryen, the legitimate son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, that would make him Daenerys' nephew. This would complicate their relationship to say the least. If it turns out that Jon is not the Aegon that Ned promised to protect, then who is? It complicates everything on a political level and on a personal level, Benioff has said, and it just takes everything that could have been so neat and kind of perfect for Jon and Dany, and it really muddies the waters. Fans are also convinced that despite previously being shown as unable to carry a child, Daenerys is pregnant with Jon's baby after their tryst in Season 7's finale. Talk about complicated. And I believe that's just about confirmed if you listen to the commentary on the Season 7 Blu-rays. Plus, has Tyrion betrayed his queen by facilitating Cersei's lie about aiding the battle against the dead? Fans think that might be the case. Dark times might lie ahead for Dany, who appears to be sporting a shorter hairstyle in Season 8. It fucked me up, Emilia Clarke said of shooting her last scenes, knowing that is going to be a lasting flavor in someone's mouth of what Daenerys is. Clarke teased that she's doing all this weird shit in the new season, and you'll know what I mean when you see it. There's also that leaked photo between Jon and Dany on a set where they're obviously standing very close together, and some people, I think it was the person that took the photo, said right before that he pretends to be stabbing her. You can't tell from the photo that we have. It just looks like he's standing really close to her. It looks like the ground is some kind of dirt, so maybe that was an outdoor scene. It's unknown at this point, but that photo is out there. She does look pregnant from the back in that photo. Cersei and Jaime. Jaime's complicated relationship with Cersei will finally come to a head, one way or another. He seems to have finally taken a strong stance against her wicked ways by turning his back on her and heading north. The conclusion to their tale will surely be must-see TV. As for where we left off, Cersei's call for a truce between herself, Jon, and Daenerys was so convincing that even Jaime fell for it, but it was all a ruse. The thing that gave Cersei humanity was her kids, Lena Headey said back in 2016. They're gone now. Of course, Cersei now claims to be carrying Jaime's child, so presuming she's telling the truth, could this prove to be her salvation, and will it come too late? With Jaime finally leaving his sister/lover's side at the close of Season 7, could the Queenslayer fan theory be about to come true? I heard that theory, and it absolutely makes sense, Kasawadu said. Maybe it's too neat, but who knows? He later suggested that Jaime might not even be capable of killing Cersei after all that's gone between them, even if, as of Season 7's finale, he appears to have turned his back on her. For her part, Edie isn't expecting her character to find redemption anytime soon, while Kasawadu has hinted at things getting even more complex between the siblings and lovers. Fans meanwhile have speculated that Cersei might meet her end at Jon Snow's hand, or that the Hound might indirectly be responsible for her downfall. Whatever happens, even Edie is convinced that her character is fucked and doomed to die before the series is over. And that gets back into that, if you can think it, somebody has leaked it as a theory or speculation or a spoiler at this point. Will Jaime turn to the dark side or the light? Or is Jaime secretly mankind's savior, the prince that was promised, as some fans have theorized? The Golden Company. Speaking of Cersei, she has hired the best mercenary company in Essos, the Golden Company. She told the Iron Bank representative Taicho that she needed to retrieve some things that belonged to her. What, or more precisely, who, is she referring to? Early script leaks suggest that they will end up bringing her Jon Snow, perhaps as a prisoner/gift in lieu of her wanted prize. We may not see Essos again until the epilogue. I'd love to see Ashai though. The Greyjoys have a part to play in this story. We left off with Yara in the hands of Cersei and Euron. Euron was en route to ferry the Golden Company back to Westeros, and Theon had finally found his courage. How will their arc wrap up? How will Melisandre die in Westeros? Before departing for Essos, Melisandre told Varys that they were both fated to die in Westeros. Melisandre is expected to make good on her word and return for Season 8. After her own mistakes, will we find that Melisandre is right in naming Jon Snow the prince who was promised? What did Varys hear in the flames? I've been wondering that ever since he first mentioned it. I hope we actually get to hear it. Arya and Sansa's future. Will Arya complete her list before the series finale? Is she fated to wed the true heir of Robert Baratheon? That would also join houses Baratheon, Stark, and Lannister, possibly bringing a peace between the warring families. Is Sansa fated to rule the North? Will either survive the end of the series? We have been awaiting the final fight between the brothers Clegane ever since Season 1's fight was stopped short by King Robert. I am not convinced the Hound meant himself when he told the Mountain that he knew who was coming for him. The Hound isn't one for talking in riddles. Time will tell if the showrunners pay fan service here. Thor Bjornsson said, I did notice a lot of people were talking about the Clegane Bowl. People were waiting for me and my brother to fight. There's a lot of expectation from the fans to see that happen. Obviously, I cannot comment on that. You're just going to have to wait and see what's going to happen. A Dream of Spring. The final 6 episodes will also have to address the final fates of Davos, Gendry, Beric, Podrick, and Varys, among others. Will Grey Worm survive the war against the Night King and return to his love, Missandei? Will Sam live happily ever after with Gilly and baby Sam? More importantly, what will his reaction be to the news of his father and brother's death at the hands of Daenerys? Will anyone survive the long winter and see spring begin when Season 8 is over? Will Tormund achieve his dream of making giant babies with Brienne that will conquer the world? Will we ever see Ghost again? It will surely be the end of an era when Game of Thrones signs off for the last time. So now we're going to get into some information that HBO has actually released. So most of this is confirmed. There's going to be some debates on, obviously, runtime and the budgets, but this is some confirmed information. There's going to be 6 episodes. The writers are Dave Hill, Brian Cogman, David Benioff, and D.B. Weiss. The directors are Miguel Sapochnik, David Nutter, David Benioff, D.B. Weiss. The directors of photography, Fabian Wagner, David Franco, Jonathan Freeman. They're stating the budget's about $15 million per episode. They started filming October 2017 and ended filming in July of 2018. The expected premiere date is going to be the first half of 2019. It's kind of speculating right now, but everybody's sort of expecting it to come out around April. But I believe May will be sweeps weeks, and I believe May is also the cutoff for Emmy nominations. So more than likely, they're going to want to have this wrapped up by May, which is fine if they premiere at the end of March, early April. It's only going to run for 6 weeks. Maybe 7 if they wait a week between the penultimate episode and the grand finale. But we're still waiting. Shooting on all 6 of the final Game of Thrones episodes wrapped on Friday, July 6th. We know we have 6 episodes. We are not sure whether they will run for 70 minutes or even 90 minutes, Kit Harington clarified in January of 2018. The length will be a network decision. There's talk of each episode costing $15 million, up from the reported figures for the previous season, which is said to have cost somewhere between $10 and $14 million per episode. Oh, and one last thing. Once it's over, with HBO shooting down any hopes of a Game of Thrones revival a few years down the line. That's not happening, network boss Casey Bloys told The Hollywood Reporter. This story, A Song of Ice and Fire, is done. So some of this information I'm about to go over has already been released in other YouTube videos. It's been released on the internet, but we'll just review it here just for consolidation's sake. So these are some seemingly plausible leaks that were posted on Reddit by user BoatSexBaby. Episode 1 and 2 is mostly setup, reunions, political drama. Episode 3 and 4 is the Winterfell battle and the aftermath. Episode 5 is the King's Landing battle, riots and chaos. Episode 6 is the epic finale of the Great War and the Dream of Spring epilogue. There is crazy time travel throughout this season. Characters will be wherever they need to be for the plot to progress, irrespective of whether it makes sense in terms of travel time. If you want to enjoy the season, you'll have to accept that. Jon and Dany's relationship survives his parentage reveal. They fight the Night King, Army of the Dead together till the end. Winterfell is attacked by Cersei's army. Night King and Army of the Dead arrive to finish the job for them. Winterfell falls, and the survivors retreat south. Night King arrives in King's Landing and burns down the city. I have linked the circumstantial evidence for this below. And again, you can go check out Free Folk on Reddit and check out these links. Clegane Bowl is real and will be glorious. Episode 6 has the Dance of the Dragons between Dany and Drogon and Night King and Viserion. It's one of the biggest highlights of the season. The Dragon Pit sequence is part of the King's Landing battle in Episode 6 and will blow everyone's minds. That's a direct quote. Night King and the others are not simply WMDs out of control. Their motivation will be revealed, and it'll tie together every White Walker related scene from Episode 1 till now. The reveal and resolution are apparently brilliant. And I would believe some of these leakers if they would come out and say what that reveal and resolution are. For them to omit that means to me that most of these leaks are fake, because if you knew what that was, you would release it. If you tell me a good reason that we haven't already went over about what the White Walkers want, then I'll start to believe your leak. HBO President Casey Bloys had previously promised a long wait. David Benioff and Dan Weiss have to write the episodes and figure out the production schedule. We'll have a better sense of that once they get further into the writing. I'm unsure when that was written. We honestly don't know yet when the final episodes will air, Benioff admitted. There's been a lot of back and forth about air dates. That's a long way off from being settled. Bloys later acknowledged that Benioff and Weiss's vision for their grand finale is far more complicated than prior years. Our production people are trying to figure out a timeline for the shoot now and how much time the special effects are going to take, he said. The shooting is complicated enough on different continents with all the technical aspects, and the special effects are a whole other production period that we're trying to figure out. That is a big factor in all of this. Ian Glenn has also suggested that bringing the show's sizable cast together for the final outing also complicates matters. We're all starting to be in the same storylines, and so they can't have 2 filming units anymore. I think this last season will take much longer to shoot because they can only use 1 unit. Gendry actor Joe Dempsey revealed to Digital Spy that he's been filming a fair bit for the final 6 episodes. I've done well out of it this year for sure, he said, before adding the fans shouldn't assume his character survives till the end. As with all these things, we never shoot in chronological order, so you might have people coming in at the beginning and at the end, but it doesn't necessarily mean they make it all the way through. The Night's Watch will also resurface, according to actor Ben Crompton, who will reprise his role of Lord Commander Edison Ed Tollett one last time before his watch is ended for good. Wolf Scolding played Rhaegar Targaryen, aka Jon Snow's father, in the season 7 finale, and posted an image of himself outside the Europa Hotel in Belfast. Could he be returning for more flashbacks and time travel shenanigans? Well, yeah, where else would he be? He's not alive, so of course he'd be a flashback. Both Tom and Vladimir have been spotted on location, meaning that fans could be seeing Jagan Hagar and the Night King in the final episode. One fan theory even suggests that the Night King will end up sitting on the Iron Throne after the red keep set was turned an icy white. Even Mark Addy has been seen hanging with his former castmates in Ireland. Is Robert Baratheon returning for more flashbacks? Ellie Kendrick has also cast doubt on a return for Mira Reed. Jason Momoa has ruled out any sort of resurrection for his popular character Khal Drogo. Tobias Menzies has suggested that he's unlikely to reappear as Edmure Tully, which means that character is doomed to rot away in prison, we guess. And that's funny, sad, and disappointing all at once. The fates of Tormund and Beric appear to be more hopeful following the release of the Season 7 finale script, where they appear to be safe following the collapse of the wall. The thing is, with so few characters left, the viewers should get used to and get ready for Thrones returning to form and killing its main characters quickly, Kit Harington has said. They're going to go, and they're going to go fast. And I think that the payoff of our characters not being in great peril this year will be that next year it's going to be a bloodbath. You kill a couple of dozen characters, the people who are left by default need to carry more dramatic weight, Weiss explained. Not quite a cast member, but Rebecca Van Cleve, who was Lena Headey's body double in Season 5's famous Walk of Shame scene, returned for at least 3 days of filming in Dublin. Even in the show's dying days, new casts will be joining the ranks, including a straight-talking and northern-accented young girl, a tough young boy who has to fight and make his way in the world, a middle-aged mercenary, and a rough-and-ready sailor. Mark Rissman confirmed via his Spotlight CV that he'd be playing Harry Strickland, leader of the Golden Company in Season 8, though the credit was later deleted. Whoops. So a couple of things about these casts right now is it sounds like this is some of the cast from the ship that Tyrion is on in the books, where basically young Griff is the real Aegon Targaryen, and he has all of these people around him teaching him how to become a young lord or a prince. And I'm wondering if some of these casting decisions are for those roles. But you're introducing a whole new plot line in the final 6 episodes of the series. That's pushing it, to say the least. It's also been revealed, thanks to her resume, that Danielle Galligan will star in the final season as a character named Sarah, and the only Sarah we know from the books is Sarah Frey. So could House Frey be making an appearance, and should Arya watch her back? Casting notices have also gone out for a male soldier with an imposing presence and combat skills, a clean-shaven grieving man, and a young village girl role for an actress aged 18 to 25 who will have to be naked above the waist. Former EastEnders star Alice Noakes has also joined the cast for Season 8, playing a character named Willa, although we do not know much about her character yet. And I'm curious if that character is going to be the Wyla that Ned mentions back in Season 1. More to follow. Behind the camera, we also have a full list of Season 8 directors, and after sitting out Season 7, Miguel Sapochnik, who helmed Battle of the Bastards and Season 5's stunning Hardhome, will be back for multiple installments. David Nutter, who directed The Reigns of Castamere, is also returning, while Benioff and Weiss will tackle the series finale themselves. So how long will it run? In June of 2016, Benioff and Weiss appeared to confirm that the show would wrap up with 2 shorter seasons. It's 2 more seasons we're talking about, Benioff said. From pretty close to the beginning, we talked about doing this in 70 to 75 hours. And that's what we'll end up with. Call it 73 for now. Every single episode of the 6 you've got left in Season 8 is going to be monumental, Samwell Tarly actor John Bradley said. I think you're going to get 6 episode 9s this year, which we know that usually the penultimate episode of each season are the best and most pivotal. So to say that we are getting the equivalent of 6 episode 9s is a bold statement, but most likely each of the Season 8 episodes will be the most pivotal of the entire series, as they will need to hammer home the theme of what A Song of Ice and Fire is really about. It's believed that Game of Thrones story editor Dave Hill will write the Season 8 premiere, while producer Brian Cogman will pen the second, having previously written 10 episodes, including 2015's controversial Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. Benioff and Weiss will then divide up the remaining 4 episodes, including, of course, the grand finale. There's probably a world where we could have milked this thing for another 8 seasons, and that would have been very lucrative for all of us, acknowledged Cogman. But Benioff and Weiss really wanted to go out on a good high point. By January of 2018, Peter Dinklage confirmed that the cast were about halfway through filming the final season. It's the final season, and it's a long one, so we're taking our time. Emilia Clarke had wrapped filming by June, confirming the news in an Instagram post, with Maisie Williams following suit a short while later, including the hashtag #LastWomanStanding. Is that a hint at Arya's survival? I believe that that's just her saying that she's the last of the major female characters still filming. I believe that's all it was, but I could be wrong. It's all so secret. Nikolai Coster-Waldau has claimed that cast won't even get the scripts for the final episodes, but will be fed their lines through an earpiece. We're going to assume he was joking, though the cast have apparently been receiving digital-only scripts which vanish after a certain amount of time. It's tighter than the White House security, joked Sophie Turner, revealing that the show's cast were even given code names on each day's call sheet so that no one knew who was really going to be on set. The series itself was also given a fake title to hoodwink any passersby. It was Face of Angels, Turner revealed. It's a random one. I've also heard that it was called Faith of Angels, so I don't know, it doesn't matter. Peter Dinklage reflected on reading the final scripts for the first time. It was heartbreaking and the end of an era. Though HBO spent a whopping £1 million on the construction of a new castle in Belfast Titanic Quarter, which many assumed to be a large-scale reproduction of Winterfell, new shots from scene reveal that the Stark's ancestral home will burn, and maybe even be destroyed. I believe the castle that was in Belfast Titanic Quarter was a reproduction of the King's Landing set, if I'm not mistaken, so this whole thing could have been wrong here. Either way, they both end up burning, as you can see in the photos. Some Game of Thrones fans assume that Sophie Turner's new tattoo, a dire wolf and the words "The Pack Survives," confirmed that the remaining Starks would make it out of the show alive, but she later insisted that her body art had been misinterpreted. "That would be terrible if I got the ending tattooed on my body just before the last season came out," she said. "That would be so stupid." Along with the Winterfell skirmish, it looks as though a fiery clash is coming to King's Landing too. A return to the Dragon Pit is also looking likely, with new images appearing to show filming resuming at the Roman ruins of Italica in Seville, Spain. Sansa will apparently be facing a new threat this season. Is it going to be the White Walkers or something else? While John Bradley has promised that his character Sam and Bran will prove to be a formidable team. What I think links these two characters is that they are both characters who are in possession of abilities and skills that nobody else has. Between them, they're such a formidable team because, okay, they can't fight, they don't have much physical power, but both of their sets of skills are so unique, Bradley said. Bradley, the old blabbermouth, has also suggested that we'll see a whole lot more zipping back and forth across the Seven Kingdoms. Each of the characters this year is placed in a completely alien environment at some point in the season that they have never been placed in before. The thrill is seeing how they react to it and how they respond. This season, I think more than any other, is stretching these characters. As for how the series as a whole will draw to a close, we know what the end is and we're barreling towards it, Benioff and Weiss said of what's sure to be the most highly scrutinized series finale since Lost. The tight-lipped pair haven't given any clue as to what the ending might entail, though George R.R. Martin has hinted at a bittersweet ending for his A Song of Ice and Fire books. GRRM has also shared a significant twist or holy shit moment with Benioff and Weiss, which won't make it to the screen till the very end of the show. Whatever happens, Sophie Turner has revealed that Game of Thrones cast burst into tears after finishing the final script. At the end of the very last script, they read aloud, "End of Game of Thrones." As soon as they read that out, pretty much everyone burst into tears. There was a standing ovation for showrunners David Benioff and Dan Weiss. We were all clapping and cheering. It was amazing. Isaac Hempstead Wright has acknowledged that while the series finale is unlikely to please everyone, we're all so confident in the way this story goes and the message it gives, and how the whole story arc works. People will scream, and people will say, "That's exactly what I wanted," and some people will go, "Huh?" "My mom, probably," said Emilia Clarke. Ian Glenn has likewise suggested that the ending won't please everyone, but called it brilliant and satisfying. While Natalie Emanuel played down concerns that wrapping up Game of Thrones in just 6 episodes would lead to a rushed conclusion. "It will go over and above the fans' expectations," said the Missandei actress. Joe Dempsey also warned fans that the end of Game of Thrones is not going to go the way they think. It would be a bit of an anti-climax if a well-popularized theory turned out to be the way it ended. Sophie Turner similarly described the show's climax as unpredictable, saying it really is so unpredictable the way it ends up. "I'm very satisfied with that, and I think the fans will be satisfied with that too." Meanwhile, John Bradley told us that the very final Game of Thrones episode could change our entire perception of the series. Because we don't know how it ends, we don't know who wins or who loses, we've got no idea what kind of story we're telling, he suggested. We don't know if it's an indictment of how bad people can triumph if good men do nothing, or a redemptive story about good triumphing over evil. But even if he's not sure what kind of tale is being told, Bradley is convinced that Samwell will make it to the end of it. If he's still around at this stage, you do suspect that there is going to be point to keeping him around. One thing we do know with Sam is that he will reunite with Jon, and the pair might even make their way to King's Landing. And Jon will also be sharing some scenes with Cersei. Casey Bloys has hinted at Game of Thrones shooting multiple versions of the very final scenes to prevent leaks. though Nikolai Coster-Waldau later suggested this would be really stupid and hardly a cost-effective move. You're not going to waste $100,000 a day to shoot something you're not going to use. It's not going to happen. I heard this and I thought, I don't think we've got the budget to shoot lots of different endings, Maisie Williams later said. But this was contradicted by Emilia Clarke, who suggested alternate endings were being filmed. There's lots of different endings that could happen. I think we're doing all of them and we aren't being told which is actually what's going to happen. And just as a side note, what she was talking about was she would appear on set at certain times and people would look at her and say, what are you still doing here? Hinting that, maybe they had filmed something that she was no longer a part of the story or something. I don't know. It was kind of strange. But it is very confusing even to the cast and crew. I think the only people that 100% know how this story is going to go are D&D, the editor, and probably GRRM at this point. One thing for certain, the final episodes will be a bit of a bloodbath, with the concluding 8th season being described as carnage by the cast. It's not like a fairy tale happy ending by any means at all, warned Hannah Murray. HBO's Senior Vice President of Drama, Francesca Orsi, even implied that all of the show's characters would perish before the final curtain falls. The table read of the final episode was a really powerful moment in our lives and our careers, she said. None of the cast had received the scripts prior, and one by one, they started to fall down to their deaths. HBO has yet to comment on any leaks so far, so whether these are fakes or real, time will tell. So what's going on with the Winds of Winter book? George Martin said, I have days when I make lots of progress, I have days where I make next to no progress, he told Digital Spy back in 2014. The 6th novel in his fantasy saga, The Winds of Winter, has been in the works for several years now, before even the first episode of Game of Thrones had aired on HBO. In January of 2016, having missed a series of deadlines, Martin confirmed that the book wouldn't be published before the launch of Season 6 of the TV series. GRRM suggested in January of 2017 that the book would finally be out this year, though he did add, but hey, I thought the same thing last year. Spoiler, 2017 did not see the release of The Winds of Winter. Yes indeed, and 2017 came and went with no new book on the shelves. I do think you will have a Westeros book for me in 2018, he later insisted. Who knows, maybe 2. A boy can dream. And essentially what he was talking about was Fire and Blood and The Winds of Winter. Fire and Blood, as we know, is coming out in November of 2018, but maybe we can get The Winds of Winter before Season 8 comes out, and that would gladly tie over a lot of us. I've been telling you for 20 years that winter was coming, he noted. Winter is the time when things die, and cold and ice and darkness fill the world. So this is not going to be the happy, feel-good that people may be hoping for. Some of the characters are in very dark places. He was basically suggesting that while his books will run parallel to Game of Thrones, they will be different in other ways. At this point, there are probably a dozen characters who are dead on the show but alive in the books, so it would be impossible for the two to remain the same. If it ever does see the light of day, we do know that The Winds of Winter will feature a prominent role for Lady Stoneheart, who has not been featured on the television series to date. So for the Long Night show, here's the official description for Goldman's greenlit pilot. Taking place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones, this series chronicles the world's descent from the golden age of heroes into its darkest hour. And only one thing is for sure, from the horrifying secrets of Westeros history to the true origin of the White Walkers, the mysteries of the East to the Starks of legend, it's not the story we think we know. And that's kind of disappointing because it almost hints that we're not going to find out what the true origin of the White Walkers is during a Game of Thrones, which is sort of aggravating. So basically, this article is from a while back, and it's going on to talk about back when they were discussing the idea of bringing in like 4 or 5 Game of Thrones spinoffs. So basically what they say here, I'll save everybody some time and aggravation, is that these were all sort of planned to make it to the pilot stage, and then once they kind of saw the pilots, they were going to pick which one they wanted to go with. And the theory now is that the Long Night show with the Golden Age of Heroes and all of that is the one that got picked to go forward. So they were never talking about doing Robert's Rebellion or any of that. That was never one of the ideas that was tossed around. So in late July of 2017, Bloys gave another update, saying that the spinoffs won't air until at least a year after the series ends. The number one priority in all of this is the final season of Game of Thrones. I don't want to do anything with the spinoff or anything that detracts or distracts from that. that final season of Game of Thrones will happen, and my guess is it would be at least a year before we saw anything else. So basically what he's suggesting with that statement is that it's going to be at least 2020 before we see anything, and maybe not even then. So here's some shooting locations and dates if you're interested in that. As you can see, this was a huge shoot, and if you're talking about, let's just go on a limb here and say a minimum of 6 hours of HBO produced television, you're talking what, 2 of the Lord of the Rings films, which took 3 years to shoot. So this is a huge production, and obviously very complicated because they're shooting all over Europe. So this was extremely complicated, and it looks like they went all out as far as in the sets, the cast, the set design, the production, the effects. Looks like they just went all out on season 8. Let's see if they deliver. So this is some of that circumstantial evidence that I had found on Reddit before about King's Landing burning down. And they're talking about Emilia and Kit were not present in Belfast on the 28th and 29th of June when the set was on fire. But guess who was there though? This picture was clicked on June 29th near Titanic Quarter. The other person with Vlad is a longtime stunt performer on Game of Thrones. Now for this last pic, it was clicked on June 28th. The dome is burnt and there is white fog rising from inside the city. Hardhome intensifies. Night King, Army of the Dead, welcome to King's Landing. So here's some other information that's been bounced around. The production did film a documentary and extra features alongside season 8 scenes. The extra stand-in doubles are all part of that documentary. There was filming going on in Italica. It's a huge location. They had shut down the ruins since May 3rd. And just about everybody involved in Game of Thrones had shown up at some point. And it's kind of a theory that HBO brought everybody there to kind of throw off what was going on. So maybe that was, the big final scene down there where everybody's coming in and they didn't know who was going to be involved. There were stunt doubles and everything. You can see all of that stuff online. I believe I found it on Digital Spy, where there was, literally dozens of pictures of fans with these people. So they weren't even trying to hide. They were like publicly out and about with all of the locals and tourists and everything. All of the reanimated heroes will die, like basically all of the Fire Whites, Jon, Beric, Melisandre. Maybe they'll all die following the Great War. Gendry will be recognized as a legitimate son of Robert Baratheon and will inherit the Baratheon name. And I believe him and Arya will eventually get married, or him and Sansa. I think he will marry a Stark girl. And that would sort of signify the joining of the Lannisters, Baratheons, and Starks, and kind of giving a reason for peace between those families. I think Daenerys will survive. I think she'll raise hers and Jon's child. Whether Jon survives or not, I think that's a different story. But it would be nice to see Daenerys survive. Sansa will be named Warden of the North. Tyrion or Davos may stay on as a hand for whoever ends up ruling Westeros. We will find out that Jon is not a Targaryen, but a true-born son of Ned Stark and Ashara Dayne. So here's some things you can do during the long night. Read the books, listen to Roy Dotrice's mostly excellent audio versions on Audible. You could do both. You could play the Telltale video game that's available on almost every platform. You can read the expanded series Dunk and Egg, or The World of Ice and Fire, or Fire and Blood, that's coming out pretty soon. Pray that The Winds of Winter is finished soon and released. There's a rumor that once GRRM hands in the final manuscript, that the publisher can get it to market within 3 months. They said a book like his can be fast-tracked, and from the minute he hands it in up until 90 days later, we could have the book in our hands. So that's important to know. You can also rewatch the whole series. It's on Hulu right now, on HBO Now. I would watch it on Blu-ray if I was you, just so you can listen to the commentary and watch some of the documentaries and stuff that are on there. They're excellent. Now, even season 1 is available in 4K. And you can even tour the series filming locations with the aid of a travel agent. Alright, so thanks for watching this video. Again, it's a consolidation of stuff that we do know and some educated speculations. Obviously, there's a few of those theories in there that are a little silly, but Anyway, I'm really looking forward to Season 8. I'm sure a lot of you guys are too. Thanks for watching this video. I will try to update it along the way if anything big comes out. And I hope everyone has a great day. Take care. Peace.